Vodou, the root of Haitian identity? What is Vodou? The truth behind the most misunderstood religion in the world. They told us to fear it. They told us to be ashamed of it. But today, Quantum Haiti is asking the question every Haitian deserves to answer for themselves. Do we actually know what Vodou is? Hollywood gave you zombies and dolls with pins. The media gave you darkness and fear. Religion gave you condemnation. But what is the truth? Today, we go back to the source, and ask the only question that matters. What is Vodou, really? History tells us it is a spiritual, philosophical, and cultural system that our ancestors carried with them from the African continent, specifically from the kingdoms of Dahomey, Yoruba, and Congo. The word Vodou itself comes from the Fon language of West Africa. It means spirit, sacred, or divine force. For the Africans who were brought to Haiti in chains, Vodou was never just a religion. It was a survival tool. It was the way they preserved their identity, their language, their memory, in spite of the chains that bound their bodies. It is the product of a forced meeting of multiple African spiritual traditions, primarily from three major civilizations. The Fon and Yu peoples of Dahomey, who contributed the core cosmological structure and the concept of the Lua, the divine spirits. The Yoruba people of present-day Nigeria, whose spiritual tradition of Ifa and Orisha worship became deeply woven into Haitian Vodou, particularly in what is called the Rada Nation of Spirits. The Bay Congo people of the Congo Kingdom, who contributed the Petwo tradition, associated with fire, resistance, and transformation. When enslaved Africans arrived in Saint-Domingue, they came from different nations, speaking different languages. Vodou became their common language. It became the container that held their collective soul together. On August 14, 1791, in the forest of Bois Caïman, it was a Vodou ceremony that opened the door to liberation. Bokman Dutty, a Hungan, a Vodou priest, gathered the enslaved people under the night sky. And it was in that sacred space that they found the courage to rise up against the greatest military power of their time. Napoleon Bonaparte's army had never been defeated. Until Haiti. You cannot speak about the revolution of 1804 without speaking about Vodou. Without Vodou, there is no 1804. Without 1804, there is no Haiti. They could enslave the body. They could not enslave the spirit. That is not an opinion. That is history. Vodou has a complete and sophisticated cosmological system, a way of understanding how the universe is structured and how human beings relate to the divine. At the top of the spiritual hierarchy is Bon Dieu, from the French bon Dieu, meaning good God. Bon Dieu is the supreme creator, the ultimate divine force. But Bon Dieu is considered too vast, too infinite, to be approached directly by human beings. This is where the Lua come in. The Lua, sometimes written Loa, are divine intermediaries. Spiritual forces that govern specific aspects of human life in the natural world. They are not gods in the polytheistic sense. They are more accurately described as divine archetypes, concentrated expressions of sacred energy. Anthropologist Alfred Metro, in his essential study Vodou in Haiti, published by Oxford University Press, describes the Lua as forces of nature and moral principles simultaneously, noting that each one embodies a specific dimension of human experience. Among the most important Lua, Papa Legba, guardian of the crossroads, the gatekeeper between the human world and the spirit world. No ceremony begins without calling on Legba first. He is the principle of communication, knowledge, and possibility. Ogou, the spirit of fire, iron, war, and justice. He is the archetypal warrior, the ancestor of every Haitian who ever picked up a machete in defense of freedom. It is no accident that Ogou was invoked at Bois Caïman. Ezili, the spirit of love, beauty, luxury, and feminine power. She represents the dignity and grace that slavery tried to strip from African women. Agwe, master of the ocean, protector of sailors and fishermen, guardian of everything that crosses water. Baron Samedi, master of death and resurrection, keeper of the cemetery. He reminds the living that death is not an end, it is a transition. Each Lua has a Vévé, a sacred geometric symbol drawn on the ground during ceremonies to invoke their presence. These drawings are precise, complex, and extraordinarily beautiful, comparable in their artistry and spiritual function to the mandala in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. The relationship between Vodou and the Haitian Revolution is not mythology. It is documented history. On August 14, 1791, in the forest of Bois Caïman in the northern province of Saint-Domingue, a Vodou ceremony took place that historians now recognize as the spiritual ignition of the Haitian Revolution. the assembled enslaved people made a collective spiritual covenant. 8 days later, the northern plantations were on fire. 13 years later, Haiti was free. Historian C.L.R. James, in his masterwork The Black Jacobins, one of the most important historical texts of the 20th century, acknowledges the role of Vodou as a unifying force that gave the enslaved population the collective will to organize and resist. Laurent Dubois, professor of history at Duke University and author of Haiti, The Aftershocks of History, writes that Vodou provided enslaved Haitians with a form of community and solidarity that colonial society could not fully suppress or understand. This is why Vodou was feared. Not because it was evil. Because it made enslaved people ungovernable. In 2003, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, formally recognized Haitian Vodou as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Today, Vodou ceremonies, art, and sacred objects are studied and exhibited in universities and museums across France, the United States, Canada, and Brazil. The Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. has featured Haitian Vodou flags, called Drapeau Vodou, as major works of art. Vodou's sacred art hangs in the Musée du Quai Branly in Paris. The world outside Haiti recognizes the value of what many Haitians were taught to reject. Vodou is not a superstition. It is not a curse. It is not horror. It is a 5,000-year-old African spiritual tradition that survived the Middle Passage, sustained a revolution, and produced one of the most remarkable cultural systems in the history of the Western Hemisphere. Understanding it is not a religious act. It is an intellectual act. It is the act of a people that refuses to be defined by those who colonize them. You cannot know who you are until you know where you come from. And you cannot know where you come from until you stop being afraid of your own history. Think. Question. Know your roots. We are IET. Vodou is a cultural heritage, just like the Creole language, just like Racine music, just like the Haitian flag. UNESCO itself recognized Vodou as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2003. The world sees the value in what we were taught to reject. Knowing Vodou does not mean you are obligated to practice it. It means you respect what your ancestors left behind for you. It means you understand that a people's identity is not something to be erased, it is something to be studied, honored, and carried forward. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share and comment this video. We are here to remind you of one fundamental truth: Vodou is part of Haitian history. It is part of who we are. Analyze. Build.